Hello, I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with my mother again today. We have some interesting things to talk about.
Hello?
Hello.
You looked at me as though I'm supposed to say something.
Yeah, I looked at you so you could say something.
So I said hello.
Yeah, okay, we've both said hello now.
Do you want me to announce the topic?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Instead of doing the homeschool session, we're going to do that another time to talk about homeschooling because we thought of another topic that right now might be even more important to discuss. And that is the topic of atheism and Christian attitude toward atheists. Um, as you probably know quite well by now, Chandler says he's an atheist, and I am still a Christian in that I believe in God and the teachings of Jesus. But I do not agree with a lot of the attitudes that many other people who call themselves Christians have toward people who are atheists. And so we want to talk about that subject because you're probably wondering why I'm not persecuting my son for being an atheist, since I do believe in God. And so we thought might be helpful to people to understand the attitude that I have toward Chandler and toward atheists in general, and that people have a lot of bad attitudes and misunderstanding about what it means to be an atheist. For example, people that are Christians or at least believe in God like I do, get the impression that an atheist is the most horrible, terrible, evil thing there is. And I think a lot of parents in particular get worried if their child says they're an atheist, that means they're automatically going to go to the deepest, most horrible canyons of hell because they're so bad. And I do not look at it that way. I just want to say it makes me sad that he doesn't believe in God, because I believe I know the real God rather than the one that has been portrayed by people in churches that has caused Chandler to not even want to believe in him, because he sees that God is a very mean God because the Christians were mean to him. And so we thought it'd be helpful to talk about this. And even though it makes me sad, I don't in any way condemn Chandler for his beliefs, and he's totally accepted. I don't shun him in any way, and I don't panic thinking that he's doomed to hell forever because he questions the Bible and he questions the belief in God, and God's not real to him, and that's why he doesn't believe in God at this point. So we just thought this was a very important subject. Chandler's tried to clarify to people. In fact, he just put out a new book. And what's the name of that new book?
Yeah, I believe it was The Anti-Abortion Atheistic Animal.
Yeah, and in that book, he's trying to clarify some things about himself that have been misunderstood. That him being an atheist doesn't mean that he isn't moral, and it doesn't mean that he just wants to not believe in God so he can go out and sin. And we were talking before we started this video about how people tend to think that being an atheist is even worse than being a Satan worshiper. And so we kind of like to get rid of some of these crazy ideas that people have, that an atheist means that they're a terrible, evil, the worst sinner imaginable, and that they're the scum of the universe, and all these kind of odd ideas that people have. We want to try to clarify some things. And one of the things we want to bring up is that recent movie, God's Not Dead, and how the atheist in that movie was portrayed that has kind of brought some misunderstanding.
Yeah. Excuse me.
So after he's done coughing or whatever he's doing, he can speak for
Yeah.
a little while and tell you what he's thinking.
Okay, yeah, that movie God's Not Dead came out. And okay, well then there were people going around saying this movie proves the existence of God. And I saw the movie twice, and that is not what I saw. I don't think that movie proved the existence of God any more than the movie Frozen proved that there's really a woman named Elsa who can shoot ice from her hands. That's the thing is, anybody with enough money and time can make a movie. But here's the deal: is that movie was an insult to atheists, Christians, and Muslims all at the same time, and that takes serious talent. Um, because first of all, the professor, which was basically, kind of the star atheist of the show, well, he was a complete jerk. There's no denying that he was a jerk, and he was demanding that his students write on a paper that God is dead, and that if they did that, then they could just skip part of the course or whatever, or something like that. And I don't think that would be allowed in a real college. But the whole thing is he was not a very nice dude, and he was basically it. And here's the deal: the way that professor reminds me of the way Christians are in churches, and pastors like, believe what I say, it's true, and if you don't believe what I'm telling you and agree, then you're going to hell, And the problem is that what they did is they made an atheist in the show with the attitude of a pastor or some Christian apologist, and so, but then. And what was interesting is I actually like it that Josh, he didn't just go along with it just because the professor said, to do this. I actually respect that. But here's what I think it really gets down to is, I think there's such a misunderstanding of what an atheist really is. And more I've gotten to the point where how I like to define it is, there is no unquestionable authority. No professor, no pastor, no politician. There's no authority that because they said that this is true, it's true. Because they said this is a good thing to do, it's good. And so I've rejected that principle, and that forms a big part of my philosophy. Like in my book, well, abortion is murder of unborn human babies, and by buying meat, you are paying people to kill these other animals, and I see this as wrong. And so this is something that I see as wrong, and it's not like some professor or God or somebody's going to tell me that that's right, and then I'm going to just agree with them. And the thing in that movie, remember about the ducks, because that one woman was asking that guy, what gives him the moral right to shoot these ducks, And he was acting like, oh, it doesn't matter because he's a Christian. It doesn't matter how many ducks he shoots because, oh, this is all temporary. And I don't know, and I didn't.
It kind of missed the point on that area.
Yeah, so that was pretty weird, and I also didn't like the way that the movie portrayed it, like that if you're an atheist, you're automatically a mean dude,
Yeah, I'd like to say something about that. In the movie, that professor supposedly hated God, and that's why he refused to believe in it. And Josh challenges him and said, why do you hate God? Why do you hate God? And puts him on the spot. And in the case of this person in the movie, he did hate God because of things that God had allowed to happen. And there may be people like that who actually hate God, and so that's why they decide not to believe in him. But the movie makes it look like anybody who claims to be an atheist is doing it for emotional reasons and because they hate God. And so he was confronted, and that this person is just completely doomed in every way. And there's a lot of atheists that are atheists because they are questioning things and they need a reason to believe in God. And they need to be able to find for themselves who God really is. They can't just accept it and say, well, I've been taught there's a God, and so if I refuse to believe in a God, it's because I'm angry and hateful and I'm bad. And see, that movie tried to make it look like it's always just one way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes atheists look even worse than what traditionally Christians have looked at atheists. Like they're so terrible. And one thing that's ironic about this is that the early Christians, because they believed in one God and would not worship the pagan gods in that society, they were called atheists. And they were a threat to the people who believed in more than one God and tried to please those. Because the Christians didn't believe in their gods, they referred to them as atheists and saw them as a terrible, not only a menace, but a danger to society, because they might not please the gods, and then the gods might get mad and get revenge on the whole society. So this is why Christians threatened the other people, and they referred to them as atheists. Now it's the other way around, and Christians call anybody they think is really bad because they don't believe in their God. They call them an atheist, and the connotation is that they are the most evil person anywhere. And like I said, it makes me sad that Chandler doesn't believe in God, because I know it's because he doesn't know God, and I believe I do know God. And yet, just because I'm sad about that, just because I feel like he's missing out, in no way do I condemn him or think he's evil. I know he's not a bad person, and I know he doesn't have a hard heart. He's not evil like the way that professor was in that movie. And I think people need to understand and show more love and acceptance to people who are different than them, especially Christians in these churches who are condemning these people, and yet they're not showing the love of the Jesus they claim to believe in. They don't accept them, they shun them, and they're just driving them further away from belief in God, because they don't want to be like these crazy Christians who act so mean.
Yeah, and well, here's the deal. There's these people walking around claiming, "Oh, I have the love of Jesus in my heart," and then they act like the worst of people. They're so mean and judgmental and all that. So I'm like, dude, if that's what having Jesus in your heart does to you, I want no part of that.
Yeah. People need to think about how they are portraying the God they say they believe in by how they're treating people, including how they're treating atheists. God never wanted us to be mean to people, no matter who they are. But I just want everyone to know that I love and accept Chandler just the way he is. I don't condemn him for being different in what he believes than me. I love him, and in no way am I mad at him for being an atheist. And I think that more families need to get over that attitude. Part of the problem is parents panic because they have been taught that their child automatically goes to hell unless they can say certain beliefs and confess certain things. And that gets in another topic about hell, which would probably take a whole other session
Yeah.
to talk about what I believe about the concept of hell and about Bible translations and how that word hell has been put in the Bibles and what the original languages meant, and the whole subject of how people really got the image of hell that they have. And so I'm not even going to try to get into that, but what I want to say is that turning against your child or some other atheist and being mean to them because they don't believe in God is, first of all, it's not going to help them believe in God, because I wouldn't want to believe in God either if somebody was putting me under pressure and saying, I won't love you unless you believe like me. Yeah. So see, it's just not the right way, and people need to reconsider their approach, not to condemn, not to yell at, not to preach at. We all need love and acceptance, and there's not enough of that going on. And so I just wanted to make sure I made a statement about that, because I'm sure people wonder, well, what does his mom believe? And it's true. I do believe in God. I feel like I know God and that he's real. But in no way am I mad at Chandler for being who he is. And I've always wanted him to learn how to think for himself. And I believe he's going to find all the answers he needs in life, because he's searching and he's open. He's not hard-hearted. He's not mean. He's not like that professor in God's Not Dead. And I just think that some things need to be clarified.
Yeah, and another thing that needs to be made clear is that there's always a reason for everything. You know, I'm a determinist. Like, everything has a cause, anything we do. And so the reason, which not everybody knows this, but the reason that I even told people I'm atheist was twofold, actually. First of all, I wanted to assure them, since, you know, I'm pro-life and I speak out against abortion, I wanted them to know I'm not Catholic or some other kind of Protestant Christian that's all like, well, women who have abortions are going to hell. I didn't want them to be afraid of that and associate me with those people. So that's part of it. The other reason is I thought that maybe I could scare the Christians away and keep them from bugging me. You know what I mean? Because, like, I thought that, you know, and sometimes that works. Now, if I've heard it scare Jehovah's Witnesses away as soon as they find your issues. But often another problem is because people are panicked, like you're saying, the friends and relatives, they're all panicked and think this person's going to hell. So then what it does is it gets them spending all their time trying to convert the atheists. And you know what? While people are converting the atheists, not much is getting done about other problems in the world, like abortion and the animal slaughter and all the war and hatred, the racism, the sexism, all these other problems, which I consider real problems that affect you no matter what your belief about God or whatever. And so what I found out is that, knowing what I know now, that was not the smartest move, telling people I'm atheist. But at the same time, I don't know what would I have told people. You know, if they ask me, do you believe in God or what's your religion? It was the quickest label that I could use to describe it. It was the most accurate at the time, but I've been greatly misunderstood the past year and a half or so because of that.
You know, Chandler, if you were telling people you're an atheist in order to drive them away, you really didn't need to do that, because probably your breath took care of that.
Oh, yeah. Because now, you on the video, you can't smell my breath, but she can.
Of course, I'm just joking. You have to throw in a little bit of humor now and then when you're talking about serious subjects, or it gets to be too much for everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, his breath isn't bad all the time, and I suppose he needed other reasons to drive people away than just his breath. So I can understand what he's saying.
Yeah, come to think of it, what I really should have just done is I should have just told people right at the start that I'm pro-life, left the atheism out of it.
Because, yeah, that drives people away.
Because that drives people away too.
Anything controversial, no matter how important it is, like a life or death matter.
Yeah.
For some reason, people get pretty mad if you bring it up. So we keep bringing things up because they're important to bring up, and people need to know it, and lives are at stake. And so I know for myself, I'm not ashamed, and I know Chandler's not ashamed to talk about what matters. And so that's true. He really didn't need to add the atheism to it at all to drive people away. Just speak out against what's wrong going on in this world that people don't want to hear.
Like you said, my breath was scaring him away anyway.
Well, yeah, that's a kind of an aside, but probably true some of the time.
Yeah. Another thing is all they need to know is that I like My Little Pony, and that scares them away too.
Yeah, that's another thing we want to talk about sometime.
Yeah.
How I feel about him liking My Little Pony. I don't have a problem with it, no matter how old he is or the fact he's a guy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought him his little pet he wanted for his birthday. So we've got a whole list of topics we want to discuss, and that's another one. But I just thought, well, this was really fresh on our minds because we were talking about it. It'd be good to share with the world what my attitude is. Even though I do believe in God, I don't believe in mistreating people because they're atheists or for any other reason, and having bad attitudes and not showing love and acceptance. We need to show unconditional love to everyone.
Yeah, another thing about that movie that really is messed up is, that movie taught me not to debate the existence of God with people. I mean, and there's people who do that. They think it's important. I get that. But it's not the answer. Because I will tell you one thing, it certainly wasn't an answer with the abortion thing. You've got the people who say, well, abortion's a gift from God. You've got the pro-choice Christians versus the pro-life Christians, and they've each got their Bible verses they pull out, throw at the other one, and try to prove that their side on the abortion debate is right. And then you've got the atheists too, and they've got their fight with each other. And so whether you believe in God or not does not define your position on abortion, but there's these stereotypes. There's stereotypes like, well, if you're a Christian, you're pro-life, and if you're an atheist, well, then you're some kind of psychopathic murderer, you know. and there's those psychopathic murderers in both groups. Those who say they believe in God and those who don't.
Right. That's something people need to realize.
Yeah, and one thing, about like the whole duck thing in that movie. Well, there seems to be this human exceptionalism or anthropocentrism, and this is one of the biggest problems I've found is the statement, well, human life matters and the rest of the animal life doesn't. And I want to say something else. Both Christians and atheists have this problem. Because the Christians, they say, well, human life matters because humans are made in the image of God, whatever that means. And then the atheists are like, well, humans are more valuable than the other animals because they're more intelligent. And I'm like, well, if your value depends on intelligence, that's a whole nother problem there. But I highly disagree that that humans are more intelligent. I actually think it's the horses that are much more intelligent. And I admit I'm open to the idea that God is a unicorn and that horses are made in the image of God.
Okay.
Because I think that's more credible than some of the stuff I've heard from these Christians.
Well, I think I know why you're saying that, Chandler, because horses are one of the animals that's nonviolent.
Yes.
They do not attack other animals. They only to defend themselves if they're scared. And if they're afraid, they'll run or they'll kick, but they won't do it unless they're afraid. And so, since humans tend to be so violent, that somehow just doesn't seem like they have God's image, at least not in their present condition. And some of the animals seem to be more in the image of God than humans. So I understand what Chandler's saying here.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that horses are in the image of God, but that, once again, that's going to have to get into a whole other theological debate. And we have a lot of topics we can talk about. We have talked about a lot of different theological and philosophical issues, and so we'll be glad to share them at different times and see if any of it's helpful to other people.
Yeah, and one final thing I want to mention here is that a lot of the debates about the existence of God or which religion is the true religion completely miss the point of what matters most in life. Because it didn't matter in the movie that the professor was because I think he was right about God not existing, actually. But the fact that he was a jerk kind of nullifies that. Because if you are a jerk and you cause pain to people and you're violent, well, then does it really matter whether you have the right answer about other scientific or mathematical or musical questions? Like, because in the end, that's what people care about. It's not about, because there's the debate over whether the Earth is 6,000 years old or is it millions of years old, and there's still the people who believe the Earth is flat, and the rest of the people who believe the world's round. But is that really that important? Isn't how you treat people in your day-to-day life more important than things like that?
Right. That's something people forget is whatever happened to being concerned about how we treat one another. And don't all of us want to be treated with love and acceptance? We may disagree all we want to or need to, but that gives us no excuse not to continue to love one another. And I guess that's part of what I'm trying to say here is that it's okay for people to disagree without getting mean about it. And that's what we practice in our relationship here at home. Chandler and I get along pretty good most of the time, unless we're in a bad mood, we're cranky because we're not feeling well or whatever. That's because the rule is to love and accept and treat one another right, regardless of whether we agree or disagree on various things.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if we were all just going to go around killing each other, what difference does it make whether there's a God or not? You know what I'm saying? Like, if people are all just going to be mean, then you've got hell either way. There's hell on earth, man. And so that's the problem, because does it really matter if people are going to be mean and just hostile and hate each other, whether it's on planet Earth or on Mars or in heaven or hell? It's still going to be suffering nonetheless. So it really doesn't. So then it makes other things irrelevant. So and the only way that the idea, for example, of an afterlife would even appeal is if it was where people could get along and be happy. That's the only way it works. So if we can't do it on Earth, then we're not ready for another life.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we've got 2 minutes. So anything else?
2 minutes to wrap this all up, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to use some of this time just to point out again how proud I am of my son. I'm not against him in any way. I'm a little sad that he doesn't know God, but I still feel like it's possible that he and the God that I know will connect someday. But either way, I accept and love him just the way he is, and I'm against treating people wrong because they differ from you for any reason. And I know people think that it's their job to be mean to warn people out of hell, but like Chandler said, they create hell on earth, and that does not make an atheist or anybody else want to be around them or spend an eternity in heaven with people who say they're Christians and yet don't know how to do anything but act mean.
Yeah, and I want to say that I'm glad my mom's here willing to talk with me about this, because one of the problems that I've had with Christians in the past is, well, they want to talk to me about this, but I ask them, would you be willing to do a recorded session with me? Would you like to do a podcast? Would you like to do Google Hangouts? Or would you like to record videos, come over to my apartment, whatever? And they're like, no, I don't want to. And why don't they want to? Because if they have something to say to me, then why are they afraid to say it to the whole world? I'm not exactly a private kind of guy, and that's why I only go in depth with this stuff when I'm being recorded, because otherwise I'm going to forget the conversation, and I don't benefit, and then other people don't benefit if they don't get to hear it. So I'm really glad that my mom was willing to do these videos with me.
Yeah, I'm glad that this can be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's it for now.